Hey, this is Pastor Sam DeChico from Concord Baptist Church. Thanks for joining us today. This is our very first podcast that we are hosting at Concord Baptist Church. We're going to get to know some of the folks in our church. We're going to start with our leadership team and then just share stories of folks, how they got saved, what their ministry is all about. And so over the next number of weeks, I hope you'll enjoy as we share stories from people's lives here at Concord Baptist Church. All right, today we have Beth Jones with us. She's our special guest. Beth works at our church. She's very involved in our ministry. I call her my assistant pastor, though she really is not the assistant pastor, but she does a lot of things that behind the scenes that helps the church run smoothly, does a lot of the tech, does a lot of the correspondence. It's just a lot of things that anything I don't want to do, I give it to Beth. And she does everything well. She's very organized, plans way far in advance, which is the opposite of me. So anyhow, we appreciate you, Beth, and let's talk about who Beth Jones is. Tell us about your testimony, how you got saved, how you came to the Lord.
Okay. So when I was young, my background is I came from a Christian home. Unlike a lot of people that I've talked to, actually, it's interesting that I was blessed to come from a Christian home where both my parents wanted to attend church. Dad was a pastor.
Okay.
So he actually preached in a circuit for the Methodist church, and he preached 3 sermons every Sunday.
Oh, wow. Was it the same sermon?
Yes, from what I remember, because I was very
in
little.
3 different locations, 3 different church locations.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he would help to plan like events and stuff for the church, like singing groups and stuff like that. So my brother and I would actually fight to see who would go with Dad to church some Sundays, because Mom also would go to another church occasionally, just because we had already established a ministry at the other church.
Sure.
So he would pick one of the 2 of us to go with him every Sunday. So yeah.
So if he preached at 3 different churches, so did he do like one early in the morning, one later in the morning, one in the afternoon or something?
Yeah, they were all done before 12:30.
Okay, were they close in proximity, the buildings?
Yeah, they were like within 10 to 15 minutes of each other.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So your dad pastored 3 churches. I pastor one, I couldn't imagine doing 2 more at the same time.
Yeah.
I imagine they were smaller churches, I guess, and they probably couldn't afford pastors. Is that
yeah,
kind
and
of
he
what
was
it
like the interim for each one, so that way he could sub at different churches. Yeah.
So they were Methodist churches. So how did you end up in a Baptist church?
Well, the church that we attended as a family was technically non-denominational. It's Calvary Memorial was the title. We actually found the Baptist church because of a radio station that my parents listened to called Praise FM. We would go to concerts at that church all the time, and my dad and Pastor John Lands got to become really good friends, so we started going to that church.
And what town did you grow up in?
So I grew up in Marietta, Ohio, but I went to church in West Virginia.
Was it on the border?
Okay. Yeah, I could just drive over the river.
Over the river, okay.
That's where my school was, too.
Oh, what was the name of your school?
What kind of Christian?
And how many years did you go to that Christian school?
I started there in 6th grade, and then I went there through 12th grade.
Okay.
So I kind of have a feeling for the kids who come here who start halfway through their careers in school, because I'm like, I was that kid. So I remember it.
And what year did you graduate?
2014.
2014. Okay, 10
Feels
years
like
ago.
For 11 now.
It'll be 11 this year.
Yeah. It's weird.
Good. So now, as you were in high school, I imagine that you felt a call into ministry or to teaching, or tell us about your call into service.
Okay, so in high school, my 8th grade year, I consider this part of high school because you're in youth group, right?
Sure.
So my youth pastor came up to the church and told us that he was leaving. My pastor started pursuing working at Pensacola. My choir director left the church, and my dad started working out of town.
Oh, wow.
So all 4 I would call most influential men in my life were leaving, gone, or doing something that I was like, wait, what are we doing? My parents weren't divorced. My dad just worked as an insurance adjuster who traveled. So he would be gone long stints of time and then come home. So I knew Dad was coming back. But my pastor, he had mentioned several times going down to Pensacola, and officially decided to go down, but then they didn't take him when I was in 8th grade. So I got my pastor and my dad, but my youth pastor and
This was Pensacola Christian
Yes.
College? Okay.
yeah. But my youth pastor and my choir director were leaving the church. The youth pastor became a pastor. He's actually up in this area in Pennsylvania now. But I just decided, I'm not going to youth group. I'm done. My youth pastor left. My brother Larry left, who was our choir director. I was like, we're done. Like, we're just going to go to church. I wasn't quitting church, but I was quitting youth group. And my parents sat me down and they were like, you're not quitting youth group. You have to go. Like, and it's funny because I didn't remember like sections of that. And my parents were like, you didn't want to meet Pastor Caleb and you didn't want to meet Miss Danae. And I was like, I know. But now, as you know, my youth pastor wife, is who I named my child after. So.
Danae, yes.
Yeah. So
Okay, well, that's
she means
good.
a lot to me now. Not that she didn't then. I just was I was a hard-headed kid.
Sure.
Not that I'm not a hard-headed adult. But yeah, so then I started going to youth group, and then my pastor had a guy by the name of Jimmy DeYoung. I think he's not around anymore, but he was
An evangelist, yes, I know of him.
And he would come for week-long revivals, and he had developed a really good relationship with my dad. And so they were having a youth night for the youth group, and Dad made me go. Not that I wouldn't have gone, but he's like, you're going, we're not going to miss it. And Jimmy DeYoung preached on 1 Timothy 4:12, and it's the let no man despise thy youth. And, he told us, you as a young person can reach someone. Don't be afraid of that. And I had served with my parents. I served with Dad, going to churches every year. I served in the choir because that's what my parents did. I sang in church because that's what they told me I should do. I sang, we did the Young at Heart, which was the senior adult group at our church. Did that from the first church all the way through this point. And he said, you need something as a young person that is your ministry. Don't just let your parents tell you do this and that's your ministry.
Sure.
So I prayed about it, and I had been baptized already. My dad got to baptize me at that church. And I rededicated myself to Christian service at that point. And I didn't know what that would look like. I just knew I'd be serving at that point.
Great.
So I started with serving in youth group, specifically doing the songs. So that goes all the way back to there.
So this was in 8th grade? Okay, kind of interesting, because last week I interviewed Pastor John Bradford, and when he was in 8th grade, that's when he received a call from the Lord. So
Yeah.
God works on young people. That's encouraging that you followed the call. At what age were you saved?
It was 8.
8 years old
yeah.
when you got saved. So a number of years later, you dedicated yourself to the Lord. So at that time, did you feel you were going to be a Christian school teacher or a missionary, or where did you think the Lord might call you to?
So what's funny is my mom was actually working in assisted living at that point, and it was a Christian assisted living, and I thought I was going to be a nurse.
Oh, okay.
But her boss told me, she said, you're not going to be a nurse. I said, yes, I am. Like, I was convinced. I was going to Bob Jones University from 3rd grade, because that's where my dad went, and I was going to be a nurse. I knew it.
Yeah.
And because that was what my aunt was. And she goes, you don't have the type of heart to do nursing, because it takes a very specific person.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm going to do it. What are you talking about? So I actually enrolled at Bob Jones as a nurse.
Oh, wow.
Nursing
Okay.
degree. And switched to business when I was leaving, basically, for school. I
Okay.
switched that summer to be business administration with the theater minor. So.
Okay. So you went off to Bob Jones. I know you were involved in their theater productions. Tell us kind of what your job was there.
So in undergrad, it was building sets and organizing the props. So I met my husband actually at the big stage on campus.
Joe Jones.
I know, yeah.
Now, let me interject this. I've known Joe since he was a little kid.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for me to realize that Joe's a grown man with 2 kids now, and bought a house and has a wife and everything, because in my mind, Joe is just a little guy. But
It's hard for Joe sometimes, too, to see
anyhow,
himself as having
but
2
it's
kids.
a blessing to see him grow up in the church and still serve in the church. Unfortunately, a lot of young people do that.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so you met Joe, and you were in theater, and he was in theater also?
Yeah, he was the stage manager because he could read sheet music.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's one of the big things when you're stage managers. If you can't read sheet music, you can't do musicals or operas because you don't know where to call the cues.
Okay.
So
And I know Joe played the piano at our
and sings,
at our
but
school
mostly piano
singing,
and
yeah.
handbells. Yeah.
So anyhow, you worked with the theater production. That was your minor.
Yes, an undergrad.
and major in business. And so after a few years after graduation, by the way, I know that your mom passed away during your college years, passed away with cancer, and it must have been hard to kind of deal with going to college and the loss of your mom all at one time.
Yeah, because she made it to my graduation of undergrad. I graduated in May, and she passed in July of that year.
Okay.
And I hadn't. So in my junior year, everybody was like, "Oh, you're going to be the next Performance Hall GA," which that is a location on campus where the theater students who are the majors study like how to do lighting and sound and act and stuff and sets. And they were like, "You're going to be the next GA," and I was like, "No, I'm not. What are you talking about?" And the faculty had been looking at me before I knew it. Basically, it seemed like, and offered me the position and wanted me to actually apply for grad school.
Okay.
And that was before I knew Mom was going to pass, obviously. And so I honestly say, like, they're the ones who kept me seeking, you know, not God, but kept me seeking the ministry more, because I saw how, you know, people can band together and really help you in tough times. So
Good.
yeah.
And then one day, our assistant pastor John Bradford shows up down there, and he's recruiting teachers. And of course, at that time, we didn't know we needed an office administrator. Our lady that was working there, unfortunately, became sick and had to go on disability. So this was right around COVID time when you came, and we hired you to be the assistant in the office and to teach theater, since you had that experience. So kind of using both of your degrees, the business and the theater degree. And I remember when you came, we were was the church shut down for COVID at that time, or was it just
We just
right after
opened
that?
back up, and you were having services in the gym.
Okay. And, you know, during COVID, of course, our church, like many other churches, had to learn how to go on camera like we're doing right now and put the service on Facebook and YouTube and all these other things. And, of course, me being an older gentleman and out of touch with a lot of technology, God sent you to come by and help us. Of course, we had others that were helping with the production. But I know when you came, it really helped a lot with our Facebook presence, and you know, you brought a lot of tech to us. So tell us what else you do with the church ministries that have helped us out.
So I help with the tech. I help with the sound crew and the lighting, or not the lighting. Figuring out lighting for theater classes. That's why I'm saying lighting. But I do the audio and the visual. So I helped pick the camera, and I helped pick the board we use to record the videos, so that way the computers all work and send things to the live stream correctly. I also was able to help. One of the ways we used my theater degree was I wrote some scripts for the puppet scripts that the kids were doing with you and Pastor Bradford.
That was when we didn't have Sunday school or junior church, so we put on little puppet shows, and Beth would write those. And
we bought new puppets. It was great.
Yeah,
we didn't have the
puppets.
puppets from the 80s anymore.
Yeah.
So
we had a lot of, you know, you came at a very critical time. You helped us out in that aspect. And then as you, of course, post-COVID, you've still been involved in all these ministries. But I appreciate Beth's willingness to kind of tackle anything. I give her jobs, and she seems to figure it out somehow. And so she helps with the music, scheduling the music, songs we sing. Of course, you know, we go over them and make sure that those are all going to be the ones we want to do. But she's the one that is kind of the background person to that. Well, then you came single. You end up getting married to Joe.
Yep.
And now you have 2 kids.
Yes.
And tell us about your 2 little kids.
So I have, my oldest is named Rory. It's Rory Allen, because the middle name is my dad's middle name. And he is 2 years old. He's actually in the daycare. He is very aware of his surroundings. It's really cute. So he was upstairs when I was setting some of this up, and I had to like duck and hide so he didn't see me. I even checked with his teacher. I was like, "Is he in the room?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, he doesn't need to see me. He'll cry." And so then we have my youngest now. She's only 2 months, and her name is Danae Jean. So Danae is after my youth pastor's wife, and Jean is my mom's middle name.
Okay. Yeah, so Beth actually just came off of her maternity leave not too long ago. We missed her. Things fell apart for a while, but somehow we survived. Now, I know you're also involved with the Friday night youth group. We have teens come out. I have a good number of teens come out from the church and school. And I know you help Brother Bill DePace with that ministry. And so we appreciate that also. But anyhow, just kind of wrap things up here. It's encouraging to me to see young people surrender to the Lord. In a day and age when a lot of young people have no interest whatsoever in full-time service, they're and not everybody certainly is called to full-time service. We realize that, but there's probably more young people called that just don't answer that call because there's an allurement of getting a good job, making some good money, things of that nature, and so it's refreshing to hear somebody who got saved at a young age, followed the Lord. Your dad evidently was very influential in your life, being a pastor, preaching. And I know you're very loyal to your father. He's your hero, which is great. You talk about him
All the time.
all the time, and that's great. And but it's a blessing to see God using your talents here at our church. We certainly appreciate all that you do. So thanks, Beth, for being our special guest today. And everybody knows Beth Jones now.
Yeah.
All right.